Welcome everyone, this is Zozo Stockwatch, and let's get ready for the week ahead, July 31st through August 4th. Well, as the big earnings season moves right along, it was a choppy week for the markets. The Nasdaq was the most volatile, and transports didn't fare well at all as airlines and railroads were down this week. It was a mixed week for the markets. But on Friday, the Nasdaq was down 8 points, the Dow Jones was plus 34 points, and the SPX was minus 3. It was another record for the Dow Friday as Wall Street blocks out the noise in Washington. Priebus out, Kelly in, who's coming, who's going. So we have a new chief of staff. Earnings have passed the halfway mark. Earnings are up about 10% for year over year, and the revenues are up about 5% year over year. Global markets are improving and rates remain low. Friday, the GDP came out. It improved to 2.6, but for 2017, it's running at about 2.2. So economic growth is not really accelerating. And the growth that the GDP was measuring from April through June, so that's supposed to be your strongest quarter. And so right now we're on track for 2017 for about 2.2 in the GDP. Trump wants to get the U.S. to about 3% growth. So far we're below that number. The Obamacare bill fails in dramatic late night vote. So the Senate basically passed nothing again. Is Trump agenda still alive? They couldn't even get through the skinny version on the Obamacare. Behind the legislative collapse, an angry vow fizzles for lack of viable plan. So basically Washington is in a mess right now, but the market's still pushing up to new highs. We also still have on our plate North Korea launches ICBM, which may have landed within 200 miles of the Japanese coast. So this is still out there and can weigh on the markets. But currently, the market is ignoring it. U.S. second quarter GDP meets expectations. And so we met expectations, but the growth is about 2.1% for 2017 if we stay at this pace. On Friday, and we'll go more into this, the FDA wants to lower nicotine levels in cigarettes. So stocks like Philip Morris and MO were hit, but then they recovered quickly as traders realized, hey, if they lower the nicotine levels, then they might sell more cigarettes. So we'll have to see. And I'll show you some of those charts. Next up, we have the Fear and Greed Index, and it's currently at 70, and this is brought to you by CNN Money. And so that's an oscillator. So fear and greed is at about 70. So keep that in mind. It's not extreme yet, but we're currently in the greed. For the spiders, we had the consumer spiders up. XLY up a tad. XLP was up. XLE Energy was the big winner this week. XLF was up slightly. XLV, the healthcare, was down. XLI, industrials, down. XLB, materials, down. Real estate, down a tad. Actually, real estate up, excuse me. XLK, down a tad. And XLU, down a tad for the week. But the big winner was the XLE, and we'll call it the XLF. So we'll go ahead and we'll look at some of the markets, and currently we're looking at the Dow Jones 30, and you can see we're riding the 10 SMA on the weekly chart and powering to new highs. Next up, we have the Nasdaq Composite, and we did get a little bit of a pullback, but we're still remaining in this uptrend. Not much damage done. We're still holding above the 10 SMA on the daily chart, but this candle is an indecision candle, but we'll have to see. Give the benefit of the doubt to the bulls here, as the Nasdaq is still holding above the 10 SMA. The utilities holding above the 10 SMA. The transports are the ones that got hit the most, and they were down close to 3% for the week. And so we're right at about the 20 SMA and a flat 20 SMA on the weekly. And it's a little more dramatic if you see it on the daily chart here. The 200 SMA is at 9100, so we'll see if that's going to come into play for the transports. And the ETF for the transports is the IYT, if you want to follow that. So we're below the 50 SMA on the IYT currently. In GDX, the gold miners ETF, we are trying to push up through that 23 level, trying to get above a previous resistance spot here on the GDX, which was 2306. Next up, we have the junior gold miners, and they've been thwarted by the 100 SMA. So they're trying to get back above the 100 SMA and maybe up through that 34 spot on the GDXJ. GLD itself did finally push up and out. So we have some clear space here on the GLD. And we had a nice bounce off that 115, 114.50 area, and we've come up to about that 121 spot. There is a previous high back here in June on the 14th, and the high there was 121.88. So just watch that 120.88 if we're going to push through that, or if we're going to get rejected at the 121.88. As far as some of the cybersecurity, that ETF was down this week, and we're down near the lows that were made in July 6th for HACK. Next, the high yield bonds are moving right up, and we held this 150 SMA here, and we've bounced up, and right now we're riding the 10 SMA on the daily chart and the 5 EMA on the daily chart, which is the white dotted line. The IBB didn't fare so well this week. We did try to break out and we kind of failed. We pushed down to the 20 SMA, and now we're trying to hold this 20 SMA here on the IBB. Next up, we have the IWC, which had a tough time here at this $90 level. Did kind of sneak its head over the over the 90 spot, and but right now we're holding the 50 SMA on the IWC, which is the microcap index, the Russell basically microcap, and they're trying to hold 88 currently, and then if that breaks, I guess they'll test the 50, and if the 50 breaks, probably we'll get a 100 SMA test on that. IWM, which is the Russell 2000 Index ETF, is trying to hold this 20 SMA on the daily chart. Kind of hit resistance here at 144.50 spot, and now pulled back to the 20 SMA on the daily chart. If we look at it on a weekly chart, not too much damage. We're still above the 10 SMA, but kind of a doji type of inverted hammer here for the IWM. For jets, you see this is the airline ETF, and we've pulled back now to the 20 SMA on the weekly chart, and you can see we're right back down to the 100 SMA on the daily chart for JETS. That's the ETF for the airlines. Mr. Copper actually, pushed up, gapped up, and is very strong on copper, JJC. And on the weekly chart on the JJC, you see we're pushed up through the 200 SMA now on the weekly chart. The OIH still on the weekly chart, can't get above and hold above the 10 SMA. On the daily chart, cannot get above and hold above the 50 SMA on the OIH, the oil services stocks. And some of those stocks are Schlumberger, Halliburton, and Rig. All right, and those are in the oil service sector. And some other things that I'm looking at and watching are the Qs, and this is the daily chart of the Qs. And for the first time in a long time, we're below the 10 SMA on the daily chart for the Qs. For the weekly chart, we're still above the 10 SMA on the weekly chart. So on this, we're also holding this 13 EMA on the daily chart for the Qs. Now, are they going to bring it down to the 20 SMA or even the 50 SMA for a test? With a 50 SMA currently on the Qs is at 140.76, so we'll call it 141. So just keep that in mind. And then on the 20 SMA, that would be at 141.32 for the 20 SMA on the daily. Robo holding the 5 EMA and powering up still. A little bit of a pullback, but holding the 5 EMA on the daily chart. If you look at the weekly chart, we pushed up to record highs on ROBO, which is the automation index. SLV on the weekly chart, trying to get back over the 100 SMA. And SLV silver is more of an industrial metal, and so that one is still struggling to get above the 50 SMA. So I think we'd have to see more growth in the economy to get silver really moving, but we'll see. SLX, which is the steel ETF, pulled back now down to around the 20 SMA. So a lot of stocks such as US Steel were down. AKS took a little bit of a hit, so that's why that ETF is down. The semiconductor stocks pulling back, trying to hold this, we'll call it 86 spot, and holding above the 50 SMA and the 20 SMA. If we look at it on a weekly chart, not too much damage done, but that 90 spot on the SMH is proving to be resistance, and we're still above the 10 SMA on the weekly chart for the semiconductors SMH. If we look at the SPY chart, you see we were up here near these record highs around that 248 level. We're still in this trend up. The 10 SMA on the weekly chart is at 243.83. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a stretch to see a test of the 10 SMA on the SPY, and then the 20 on the weekly chart is around 240. So that's a big number for the SPY, and a lot of traders will be watching that. Next up, we're going to have the Nat Gas, and that is still weak and trending down on the weekly chart. And if we go ahead and look at it on a daily chart, you see we're still below the 50 SMA on the UNG. Oil fared really well this week. Oil was up about 1% for the week on sorry, that was Friday. So we're up 1% for Friday, but for the week, excuse me, we were up 9% in USO is what I meant to say. So USO was up 9%. And let's go ahead and take a look at WTI. That was also up about 9%. So on the weekly chart, though, we're coming up to a little bit of resistance, the 34 SMA, the orange dotted line you see here. And on the daily chart, we have that natural resistance number 50, which everybody's watching. Will oil get above 50? And we'll see if they want to get it up through the 150 SMA, this orange dotted line on WTI's light sweet crude. Next up, we'll take a look at some of the spiders, the XLF ETF, and we did get a big push up and gap up on the XLF, and now we've pulled back, and we kind of closed right near around that 25 spot and the 20 SMA. So I think, you know, for the banks to get bullish again, we're going to have to get back over $25 on the XLF. Next up, we have XME, which was the mining ETFs, and that's pulled back now down to the 20 SMA. Let's go ahead and look at some of the big stocks for this market. Apple had pullback this week. On the weekly chart now, we're kind of messing around and trying to hold above the 10 SMA on the weekly, but you know, this is not a very good, decisive, powerful candle here on Apple. But we'll see if it can hold this 20 SMA on the weekly chart. As far as the daily goes, we're right smack at that 50 SMA, a flat 50 SMA on the Apple daily chart. Next one up, one of the leaders is Amgen, and you see we've gapped down now, and that affected the IBB. We're trying to hold this 170 on Amgen. Amazon, which had the big earnings this week, came out, and you know, the stock had earnings, good earnings priced into it. We got as high as that, you know, 1,080 area, and now we've pulled back down to around 1,020. We're still holding above the 50 SMA on the weekly chart. I'm sorry, on the daily chart. Sorry about that. Next one up, we have some semis we'll look at, AVGO, and we've came up to that 260 level, and we pulled back from there, trying to hold the 20 SMA. On the weekly chart on Broadcom here, we're still holding above the 10 SMA. For BABA, which was a powerhouse, just keeps powering along here on BABA, holding above the 10 SMA. Looks a little bit stretched to me, but you know, they're still buying it. Trying to get over that 160 area on BABA and hold above it. We are holding above the fast-moving averages. Some banks, Bank of America, pulled back from their highs. IBB, another biotech, had earnings, popped up, pulled back, trying to hold above the 10 SMA on the daily chart. Citigroup got up to the 69 area, pulled back, coming down to the 10 SMA on the daily chart and trying to hold above the 20 SMA on the daily chart for Citigroup. Celgene, pretty much looks like Amgen also got up near these highs. Here's the pullback, but trying to hold the 20 SMA on Celgene. Facebook, really strong, holding this 5 EMA, gapped up after earnings. You see the big volume, and we did pull back a little bit, but we're still holding that 170 and holding the 5 EMA. Here's the weekly chart on Facebook, and you see now we're getting far away from the 10 SMA. But you know, I mean, shorts are probably taking a little bit of a hit in Facebook, and not much of a pullback or reprieve for them. Google on the weekly chart, we're still holding above the 20 SMA on the weekly, and but on the daily chart we're below the 10 SMA, and it looks like it's kind of rolling over. We're below the 5 EMA for Google currently. JP Morgan, another bank, trying to hold this 91 spot, couldn't get up through that 94 level. Netflix, the big gap up in earnings, kind of just consolidating right now, holding around that 10 SMA on the weekly chart. I mean, a big stretch, but not giving much of it back yet, and trying to hold this 180 on Netflix. Nvidia, big name in the semiconductors. This is holding above the 10 SMA, and every time you think it's stretched and can't go higher, you know, they push it higher. So it's still showing strength here above the 10 SMA on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, and Nvidia holding the 20 SMA. We pulled down to it once before, and we've held it now a second time. Probably needs to get back above this 170 spot on Nvidia. Priceline, one of the leaders in the NASDAQ, coming up to that 2050 area, being rejected slightly, holding above the 10 SMA on the daily chart. And Tesla, whose Model 3s I believe are being released, some of them released this week, holding below the 50 SMA on the daily chart, the yellow line you see here. And the weekly chart, we're below the 10 SMA on the weekly chart for Tesla. So that's some of the major stocks, and now we're going to go into the best stocks for the week. Best stocks for the week. Dillard's DDS up 16% for the week. FCX up 12% for the week. BA Boeing, big leader in the Dow this week after earnings, up 14% for the week. BIDU, Baidu, up 14% for the week. Some of the oil names, APC up 5%, MRO up 4%, CVX had earnings Friday, that was up 5% for the week. AT&T was up 7% for the week. Verizon was up 8% for the week. So now you see some of the names that pushed the Dow up to record highs. Verizon being up 8% for the week. Caterpillar up 7% after earnings for the week. And you see these big push-ups off of the 10 SMA for a Caterpillar. Facebook had earnings, so this helped the NASDAQ, and that pushed higher, up 5% for the week. SGMS, a gambling stock name, a lot of call activity around this name, and this was up 44% for the week. SHOR was up 29% for the week. IPWR up 14% for the week. MBRX climbed 26% for the week. KTOV, this was a biotech name, and this was up 20% for the week. iRobot, they reported earnings and they were up 21% for the week. GNCA, another biotech, that stock was up 22% for the week. Next up we have Tree, and that was up 19%. Big powerful moves in Tree, and that was up, like I said, 19%. NTGR, Netgear, up 14%. LMAT, up 20% for the week. CO just keeps powering higher. This was up 16% for the week. Pets, which reported earnings last week, was up 19%. Another earnings stock was AAN, and this was up 20% for the week. An IPO that came out, RDFN, believe that was up 44% for Friday, and that was IPO Friday and RDFN. Now some of your worst stocks for the week. So in some of the worst stocks for the week, I had mentioned that the transports were down, and here's SAVE, S-A-V-E, Spirit Airlines, and this was down 21% for the week. Some of the other airlines, LUV was down 6% for the week. DAL down 4% for the week, and UAL was down over 5% for the week. Some of the rails were down this week. We had CSX down 3% for the week. UNP, Union Pacific, was down about 2% for the week. CP was down about 3% for the week for the rails. Some other names that were down this week, WDC, that stock was down 10% for the week. STX, down 18% for the week. Twitter took a hit, and it was down 17% for the week. MU, semi name, down 9% for the week. GLW, down 8% for the week. DPZ, down 14% for the week. See that big candle drop on the weekly here. GT, down 8% for the week on Goodyear Tire. SBUX, this is a popular name and loved by Wall Street, down 7% for the week. NVAX, down 35% for the week. EGRX, minus 33%. AMED, down 21%. MOBL, down 29%. Other names include ELLI, down 17%. CVRR, that stock was down 17%. HIBB, down 23%. Dries, who just did another 1-for-7 split. I mean, it's just endless with Dries, was down 45% for the week. So is another split coming up for Dries? I guess we'll see. MD, down 18%. BPI, minus 28%. Bloomin' Onion, BLMN, took a hit this week, down 17%. BWLD, Buffalo Chicken Wings, down. Wild Wings, down 11% for the week. Mo, which I showed you the article on that with the nicotine, was down 9% during the week. And that was from that FDA that they want to reduce nicotine levels. So MO got hit, PM got hit, and so that's a few of the tobacco stocks. And you see the action in the names. Here's PM and MO, and if we go to a intraday chart, here was Mo pushing down Altera Group on a 5-minute chart. And you see the sell-off when the FDA announced that news, and then the recovery, but still, off of the highs for Altera Group. So that one took a 9% hit. So that's some of your worst stocks for the weeks. So let's get ready for the week ahead, and I want to show you some options, call activity, unusual call activity, and this is from Trade Exchange. And this is a letter that they send out each night and over the weekend, and this one came out on Friday. So here's some of the unusual call activity. AABA, BABA, unusual call activity, BJRI, CACC, CTL, CYTR, FCX, JD.com, Pfizer, PFE, PSX, RLGY, and then on Friday, unusual put activity, COTY and JCPenney. So keep those stocks with the unusual call activity. As for earnings coming up, we have a big earnings again, and so here we go, courtesy of Earnings Whisper. And you see Monday, Power, SPWR, Herbalife, HLF reporting earnings on Tuesday after the bell. Groupon, Humana on Wednesday, Fitbit, Tesla. And let's see, we move on to Thursday before the open. Teva, Chesapeake, CHK, Grubhub, Yum. So a bunch of earnings coming out this week. Also Trivago on Friday, and Cigna, CI, GoPro will be coming out after the bell on Thursday. So those are some of your earnings for Thursday. Cara will be coming out with earnings on Thursday after the bell. For your economic information coming out this week, on Monday we have the Chicago PMI. We also have pending home sales coming out at 10 o'clock. Dallas Fed manufacturing survey at 10:30. Farm prices at 3 o'clock. On Tuesday, we have the motor vehicle sales coming out. Personal income and outlays at 8:30. PMI manufacturing index 945. 10 o'clock. ISM manufacturing index. Construction spending 10 a.m. On Wednesday, have mortgage applications, ADP employment report. Also, we have the EIA petroleum status report at 10:30. We also have Fed speak this week. Loretta Mester speaks at 11 a.m. John Williams speaks at 3:30. Chain store sales coming out on Thursday. Jobless claims at 8:30. Factory orders 10 a.m. ISM non-manufacturing index 10 a.m. Nat gas at 10:30. And then Friday, the employment numbers, non-farm payrolls, employment situation 8:30 Friday. So big day Friday. And then also the Baker Hughes rig count for Friday at 1 p.m. So important for oil. Baker Hughes rig count. For your earnings calls on Monday, earningscast.com. See how heavy the conference calls are. And I'll just scroll through that really fast for you. So a lot of conference calls for you this week coming up. And each night I do a stocks to watch list, and I'll give you some earnings that are coming out the day before and after and before the bell for earnings. So this has been your Zozo Stock Watch. Let's get ready for the week ahead. So now you're more ready for the week ahead than you were before.